Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I'm here with the 5th episode of my Halloween horror movie review series, and this is for the American movie I'm going to be reviewing in this episode, is the American remake of Wreck, Quarantine. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, around once Wreck was released in 2007, it was a hit with Spanish audiences. Even some Americans even liked it. Really, they found it one of the scariest movies they ever watched. It was even pretty profitable for an independent horror feature at the box office with $32 million on a $2 million budget. So of course that led to a sequel, but of course that led to a sequel, Wreck 2, and of course 2 other really bad sequels that I've already talked about. But yeah, it's even today viewed as one of the best found footage horror movies of all time. But then, just a year after Wreck Cord was released, or Wreck, Sony Screen Gems got found out about it and said, "Hey, I got a great idea. Let's just these two filmmakers could make such a great movie, and could make such a great horror film, scare audiences by doing little stuff with little money and hardly even a script and improvising almost everything in the movie. Clearly, we can just do the same kind of film except destroy everything. And hey, we could do that in America and change up some stuff and do an American version of it, how we already trashed The Grudge and trashed The Ring. Yes, I hate The Ring, guys. I prefer Ringu. Oh, too bad. Oh, suck it up. It's what we're doing." And that was how we got Quarantine. And I know it gets so much hate because it's a remake. People saw it. It's one of the worst horror movies I've ever watched. It destroys everything good about Record. I gave it a rewatch, and yeah, I agree it sucks, but I don't think it's as terrible as people call it. There are some more original scenes, and a few added scenes that are actually more original that weren't in Record. But yeah, I agree, it's still pretty awful. And here's what it's really about. Well, much like with Record, a television reporter named Angela and her cameraman, who's actually not named Pablo in this version, is actually named Scott, are assigned to spend the night shift with the fire station that's not in Barcelona, in Los Angeles this time. And much like the original, after a routine 911 call takes them to this apartment building, they find police officers already on the scene in response to blood-curdling screams coming from one of the apartment victims. They soon learn that a woman living in the building has been infected by something unknown, just like in the original. After a few of the residents are viciously attacked, they try to escape New Square in tow, only find that the CDC has quarantined the building, just like in Record. Phones, internet, television, and cell phone access have been cut off, and officials are not relaying information to those locked inside. Yeah. So, why is this movie pretty bad? Well, it's literally just a total frame-by-frame remake of Record, except in English. Even though its co-producer actually tried to deny it was a remake and say it was more original, and say it was actually an original movie. What's worse is that Screen Gems basically tried to prevent Record from being released in America so that this movie would look like an original film and people wouldn't call it a remake. And we know it horribly failed. Because a few Americans actually managed to see Record before Quarantine came out. It's unnecessary paddling to extend the movie's length. If you've watched Wreck, a lot of the movie's iconic moments are so predictable due to how awfully similar they are. Seriously, much like Record, it starts at the fire station and continues at an apartment. One of the firefighters gets thrown down the stairs, like in Record. It placements really hard to the ground. In fact, now I mention it, the firefighter scene is actually so funny in this film because of how the firefighter screams in this version. In Record, you don't see it coming, and he screams like an actual person being thrown to their doom. Thrown to their death. And it's actually terrifying because it just comes out of nowhere. In Quarantine, he screams like a literal chicken because I guess they thought it'd be creepier if he screamed like an actual chicken. And of course, the infamous Ground Zero monster in the locked penthouse at the end, much like in Record. it's far scarier. He looks like an actual monster in Record. In Quarantine, it basically just looks like this old man in his underwear, and just makes a bunch of growls. He makes a bunch of grumpy growls once he gets alerted of them in there. While in Record, it actually screeches and actually slams the wall a few times, and until it finally finds them. Much like, and when the co-producer denied that Quarantine was a rip-off of the interviews, despite critics' audience and even the record creators and directors actually know about this movie, and even provided everyone that it was all a remake, and even audiences weren't that foolish. They knew what Record was. Large amounts of exposition. Oh yeah, and another thing, the cameraman in this movie, Scott, reveals himself all throughout the movie. Like, he reveals himself in the beginning, and reveals himself when he's wiping the blood he smashed the zombie with on his camera. Stuff. And a few other scenes where he's revealed what he looks like. It ruins his mistress appearance. It is so stupid, because in the original movie, Pablo was never revealed. No one knew what he looked like. He was just a cameraman, and he actually proved himself to be very useful. He managed to get Angela to survive up until the very end, but in Record she doesn't actually die, but you get my point. And there's another problem this movie has. The DVD cover that I was holding up, the poster, and the trailers, or as they call it, the promotional materials, all spoil the ending scene. Like, seriously, you don't put the last scene in your trailer. You don't ever do it. Not just like the last image, or the last shot, or the last scene, but also the final jump scare of the whole film. You don't put that in your trailers. That just makes you very predictable. That just shows you're lazy at making movies, or lazy at making trailers. You don't put the scene in your trailer, period. Like, even Your Movie Sucks' review of Quarantine, in his review of Quarantine, he even mentions that, and I agree with him. Putting the last shot in your trailer is so stupid. It's lazy. It's not even epic. But there are some redeeming qualities that prevent it from being as terrible as Rec 3 and 4. Like, there are of course a few moments that make it a little different from Record, but only by a water-thin slice. Like, there's actually one scene where a survivor actually tries to rip off the cover ceiling off the building and try to escape the building, but an FBI SWAT officer shoots him with a sniper. And of course, the cameraman Scott actually kills one of the affected by bashing its skull with his own camera. It actually is kind of an awesome scene when he bashes the camera, but without the CGI blood and everything. He actually straight up grabs the camera and he bashes the first infected person several times. Take out the infected blood, and honestly, it's actually not that bad of a scene. But that's done with me talking about Quarantine. Here is how I would rank Quarantine. I am going to give Quarantine a 5 out of 10. And that's it. All my 5 Record reviews are all done in the Halloween Horror Movies review series. I'm going to be talking about more horror films, except some more different ones this time. First, let me put Quarantine back on the shelf. Now that I am all done the Record reviews, and I will show you guys what I'm going to be talking about next. The next horror movie I'm going to be talking about is none other. Oh, alright, anyway. So you're all wondering, what is Movie Lover 120's next horror movie review going to be? I will tell you guys. It has something to do with a cave, and a group of women who go explore into it, and get trapped in it, and get pursued by a bunch of creatures. And you're wondering what that movie review is? And you're wondering, is that movie The Descent? Yes. The Descent is going to be the next horror movie review I'm going to be doing. And yes, guys, I will also be doing a review for the sequel. So, yeah, that sequel is going to be real fun to talk about. I cannot wait. But I really am excited to talk about the first film, but that'll be it for this review and video, guys. Thank y'all for watching, and if you like this one some more, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.